The moment she said she was leaving, the room felt smaller, like the walls were slowly closing in on me. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment. You're not alone in this. I'm not a dramatic person. I believe in routine, in building something steady over time. For nearly 15 years, my life revolved around work, bills, and coming home to the same woman I thought would always be there. We weren't rich, but we were stable. A small house, predictable evenings, quiet weekends. I thought that was enough. She told me she'd met someone else. Younger. He makes me feel alive, she said, staring at the floor like it might forgive her. I remember nodding, pretending I understood, while something heavy settled in my chest. I wanted to ask what I did wrong, but the words wouldn't come. After she left, the silence became unbearable. Friends didn't know what to say. Family offered advice that felt like blame. Money became tighter overnight, and nights stretched longer than they ever had before. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the version of myself I built my life around. The days after she left blurred together in a way I didn't recognize. I still woke up early out of habit, still made coffee for two, before realizing there was no one else to pour it for. The house felt wrong, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. At work, I stared at my screen pretending to focus, but every small mistake felt bigger than it was. My manager asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. People started choosing sides without asking me anything. Some friends stopped calling altogether. Others tried to explain her decision to me, like it was a math problem I hadn't solved correctly. "These things happen," one of them said. I smiled, then went home and sat in the dark because turning on the lights felt pointless. At night, my mind wouldn't slow down. I replayed old conversations, searching for clues. Was I boring? Too tired? Too predictable? I remembered how she used to complain about my long hours, how she said I'd changed. Maybe I had, but I thought love was supposed to survive phases. Bills piled up faster than before. Her half of everything was suddenly my responsibility. I skipped meals without realizing it, surviving on cheap takeout and caffeine. I wasn't trying to punish myself, it just didn't feel like I deserved comfort anymore. A month later, I saw them together for the first time. It wasn't planned. I was buying groceries when I noticed her laugh from across the store, lighter than I remembered. She stood next to him, his hand resting casually on her back like it belonged there. He looked confident, relaxed, untouched by the weight that had crushed me. I abandoned my cart and walked out, my chest burning like I'd run a mile too fast. In the car, I gripped the steering wheel and whispered, "Get it together," but my reflection in the mirror looked hollow. That night, I checked her social media for the first time since she left. Photos, trips, smiles, proof that she wasn't falling apart like I was. Family dinners became awkward. My sister tried to set me up with someone from her office, talking slowly like I was fragile. My parents asked if I'd learned anything from the marriage ending. Every question felt like a quiet accusation. I started blaming myself for everything. If I'd been more exciting, more attentive, younger somehow. I compared myself to a version of me that no longer existed and came up short every time. Sleep became shallow, filled with dreams where she came back, only to leave again. By the second month, loneliness stopped feeling sharp and started feeling heavy. It sat on my chest from morning until night, like something I couldn't shake off. I went to work, came home, ate whatever was easiest, and repeated the same cycle. Some evenings, I turned the TV on just to hear voices, even though I wasn't watching. People around me expected progress. "You seem better," coworkers said because I no longer looked shocked all the time. But inside, I was worse. The sadness had settled into something quieter and more dangerous, numbness. I stopped caring how I looked. I stopped answering messages. When friends invited me out, I told them I was tired. The truth was I didn't know how to be around couples without feeling exposed. One night, I found an old box in the closet filled with photos and letters from our early years. I sat on the floor flipping through them, noticing how sure we once looked. She had written, "We'll figure everything out together." I laughed softly at that line, then felt my throat tighten. I kept asking myself when "together" stopped meaning both of us. Money worries added another layer of stress. Rent, Utilities, groceries, it all felt heavier alone. I lay awake calculating expenses, wondering how long I could keep pretending I was okay before everything collapsed at once. The humiliation came quietly, not all at once. I ran into an old friend who asked how married life was going, then froze when he saw my face. Word had spread, but not gently. People knew she left me for someone younger, and no one said it out loud, but I felt it hanging in the air. Like I'd been replaced because I was outdated. At work, I was passed over for a small opportunity I'd been waiting on. My supervisor said I didn't seem fully present lately. I wanted to explain that my entire life had just cracked open, but instead I nodded and apologized. That word, sorry, came out of my mouth too easily these days. That night, I sat in my car outside the house and didn't go in right away. I just stared at the steering wheel, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. I thought about calling her. I even typed her name into my phone, then erased it. I didn't trust myself to hear her voice without begging. Inside, the house smelled stale. I ate cereal for dinner because cooking for one felt pointless. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a thought scared me more than the divorce itself. What if this is it? What if this emptiness doesn't go away? The third month was when the silence started talking back to me. It followed me everywhere, into the shower, into my dreams, into the long pauses between breaths. I stopped checking my phone as often because no one was really reaching out anymore. Everyone assumed I was handling it. I wasn't. I was barely holding things together. I tried distractions, extra hours at work, late-night drives with no destination. None of it worked. The moment I slowed down, the thoughts rushed in. I kept imagining her new life, how easy it must be without me. I wondered if she ever felt guilty, or if guilt was just something left behind with the rest of our marriage. One evening, my sister called and asked how I was really doing. I surprised myself by snapping at her. "I'm fine," I said too quickly. After I hung up, the guilt hit. I sat on the couch with my head in my hands, realizing I'd started pushing away the few people who still cared. Sleep became a negotiation. Some nights I didn't sleep at all. Other nights I slept too much, using it to escape the hours I couldn't stand being awake. I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't healing. I was just existing, and even that felt exhausting. The shift didn't come with clarity or strength. It came with exhaustion. One morning, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection and barely recognized myself. The dark circles, the slumped shoulders, the way my eyes looked permanently tired. I didn't feel dramatic sadness anymore, just a deep, quiet ache. I sat on the edge of the tub and let my head drop into my hands. For the first time, I admitted something out loud, even if no one else heard it. I can't keep living like this. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't hope. Just an acknowledgement that whatever I was doing wasn't working. The thought scared me. Change meant effort, and effort felt impossible. I was afraid that trying again at anything would only end in more disappointment. At least this numb routine was familiar. At least it didn't surprise me. Still, something lingered after that moment. A small, uncomfortable awareness that staying exactly where I was might slowly erase me. I didn't know what needed to change, or how. I only knew that I was standing at the edge of something unfamiliar, unsure whether stepping forward would save me or break me even more. I didn't wake up brave. I woke up tired of being afraid. The fear was still there. It just wasn't loud enough to stop me anymore. Sitting at the kitchen table one morning, I made a quiet decision to stop pretending I was okay and start dealing with what was actually in front of me. I took out a notebook and wrote down everything I'd been avoiding: my finances, my health, my isolation. It was overwhelming seeing it all in one place. I realized how much of my energy had gone into replaying the past instead of surviving the present. I couldn't fix the marriage. I couldn't compete with someone younger. But I could control how I handled the damage. I started small. I set a strict budget and cut unnecessary expenses. I emailed my manager and asked for clearer expectations instead of silently failing. I forced myself to text one friend, then another. Each step felt risky, like I was setting myself up for rejection all over again. At night, doubt crept back in. I questioned whether any of this mattered, whether effort was just another way to delay acceptance. But beneath the uncertainty, there was a fragile sense of movement. Not hope yet, just the feeling that I wasn't completely stuck anymore. The work was slow and uncomfortable. There were days I wanted to quit halfway through and crawl back into old habits. Waking up early to exercise felt pointless when my chest still ached. Staying late at work to rebuild trust felt unfair when I hadn't caused the betrayal. But I kept going, not because I believed in some big outcome, but because stopping felt worse. Progress didn't come cleanly. I missed workouts. I overspent some weeks. I snapped at friends who were trying to help. But there were small moments that surprised me. A paycheck that stretched further than before. A meeting where my input was actually noticed. A night where I slept without waking up from the same dream. Emotionally, it was uneven. Some mornings I felt steady. Others, a random song or memory knocked the air out of me. I learned to let those moments pass without fighting them. I didn't need to erase the pain to move forward with it. Nothing about my life looked impressive yet. But for the first time since she left, my days were no longer just about surviving the loss. They were slowly becoming about building something that didn't depend on her presence. The real change didn't announce itself. It showed up quietly, in ordinary moments I almost missed. One evening, after a long day, I realized I wasn't rushing home to escape my thoughts anymore. The house still felt quiet, but it no longer felt hostile. It was just mine. Life didn't suddenly get easier. I wasn't happier all the time. Some nights, the loneliness still crept in, especially when I thought about how easily she moved on. But the pain had softened. It no longer controlled every decision or defined my worth. I stopped measuring myself against the man she chose. I understood, slowly, that her leaving wasn't a verdict on my value. It was a reflection of her choices. Financially, things stabilized. I wasn't thriving, but I was managing. At work, consistency rebuilt trust, and small responsibilities came back my way. Nothing dramatic, just steady ground under my feet again. Emotionally, I learned to sit with discomfort without running from it. That alone changed everything. What this experience taught me is simple, but hard-earned. Being left doesn't mean you were unlovable. Sometimes it just means the relationship outgrew its truth. Healing isn't about winning or replacing what was lost. It's about becoming whole again on your own terms. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, telling these stories out loud is how we remind each other that starting over is possible, even when it hurts.